We know how, as leaders, there are certain things we can do to attract, retain, and sustain great performance of staff. I recently was invited to speak at an executive forum on specifically that topic, and there's 16 points that I'd like to share with you in this video today that allows you to, yes, attract, retain, and sustain your workforce. And specifically, the major point here is that success relies on structure. And especially in small to medium-sized businesses, we don't necessarily have the same structures in place as corporations would have, which obviously have been able to build it over time. And so the point of me sharing these 16 points with you today is that not necessarily that you need all of them simultaneously, but the more of these things you put into your business, the better it's going to serve your business and your people. And it's not just a tick the box exercise. What you want to do instead is create magic with every single item of the 16. So without further ado, let's jump into it right away. Number one is vision and values. Being very clear and specific and intentional about vision and values is important. But I'll also will say, I see too often that the vision and values are more so something that people came up with as a great idea of a certain type of leader or a group of leaders, and when it really is being practiced in the workforce, guess what? They're not necessarily abiding by it themselves, and that is not what we're referencing here. What you want to do is make sure that you as a leader become the perfect example of the values, and that you live them and breathe them every day, especially when you're under pressure, because that's when most people revert back to more primitive behaviors, and that's when it basically clashes with the values that we decided on in the first place. And guess what? Monkey see is what monkey do. Whenever a staff member picks up that you're not necessarily doing what you said was important, guess what? They're not going to find it important either. Number two is brand and culture. I find that especially when people seek to attract wonderful staff, your brand, how your business presents itself outside is going to be pivotal, because it's either going to be that sort of brand that looks great in the eye of the ideal employee in this case, or it isn't. And so you cannot just be one of many. You want to be the one that really gets known for certain things that the people that you're seeking to attract is going to be looking for. And it cannot just be salary. I see too often, again, organizations, weaving the carrot, so to speak, and thinking that just a big pay is going to do it. And guess what? If people then decide to move on and sometimes take jobs that pay less afterwards, it just means that the brand and the culture that you've created are not the ones that actually are there to sustain employment. Number three then is an induction program. Induction programs, the way that I often see them being done, is very quick, and it's almost like a swim and sink approach. You're being thrown in the deep end. Here's your mobile, here's your laptop, here's what we do, check out this webpage here, do this, read this manual, and that's it. Guess what? When I was introduced back in the days to a Fortune 500 company as a regional sales manager, I remember how much time people were taking with me in my first 2 weeks to really show me the ropes. And my boss would step in with me and keep his finger to the pulse on a weekly and even sometimes daily basis. That is commitment. That is an investment upfront made by a company into new recruits, so to speak, to set them up for success rather than make them sink or swim. That is really where an induction program should be really intentional, well designed, and where people take the time to walk you through the office, that walk you through the plans and the vision and the mission, and where you get introduced to multiple people, and yes, where you get familiar with the products and service and so on. It cannot just be the technical side of things. It has to be a lot more than that. I was even flown over for a whole week to the US to see the factory, touch the products, meet the people in tech support, meet the people in HR, meet the people in international sales and marketing. All of that was very intentional. It was an upfront investment, but it paid off dividends. Number four then is casual feedback. This is probably one of the most under-delivered items on the list, and it's crucial. It is such that a lot of employees that I speak to, they are left in the dark. they don't know necessarily where they're at, and in the absence of feedback, they cannot shape their behaviors in a way that is going to contribute great value to the business. And so it's our job as leaders to provide feedback, not just at the performance reviews, not just, every quarter. We've got to do it all the time. And I think from what I recently heard a great leader say in a large organization, he said, culture is all about you being able to walk past a certain type of behavior that you're okay to put up with. And that is going to basically set the tone for the whole organization. Well, that means also that if you walk past someone who's doing something at a lower level than what you're expecting them, and you don't say anything, that's an absence of feedback, and you cannot then just say that it's the fault of the staff member for not pulling their weight, so to speak. It's your job to provide them the feedback, and hopefully you'll do it in a positive way, a constructive way that actually builds people rather than destroys them. The next one then is clear goals and KPIs. I remember working with a group of people in a bank, and at the time these people told me that they had 11 or 12 KPIs that they were accountable for. And I thought, 11 things? How on earth can you ever stay on top of all of them simultaneously and hit all of them with excellence? It's just not possible. Research today is unequivocal that less is more. Let's say the less KPIs and specific goals that you're tracking and measuring and holding people accountable for, the more effort and intention they can put into those 1, 2, or 3 metrics that you have decided are the most important ones. So once you do that, people have more focus and more heart to put into those metrics that you decided on. So you've got to be really specific about what it is that you want people to achieve. And dumb it down, so to speak, because if there's too much, people drown in complexity, and complexity gets in the way of getting things done. Next one then is personal goals and plans. Once you have, let's say as a business, set the goals that every staff member is accountable for, you want to invite your staff to tell you as a subject matter expert how they're going to go about achieving those goals. And then you want to shape that plan with them together. Why would you do that? Well, we also always say that co-creation creates buy-in. Co-creation makes people take control. It makes them accountable, responsible, and it makes them feel that they own it rather than you. And again, in too many businesses, we see that leaders delegate something only to take it back later on, which is basically reverse delegation, and you don't want to go there. You want to always make sure that what you delegate stays in their hands and they take charge. The next one then is scoreboards and scorecards. Either one of them works, but the idea is that there's always crystal clarity in terms of where an individual is at and where the team is at. And that comes back to scorecards. Scorecards are more personal, scoreboards are more team-orientated. And so if you, for example, think of the analogy of a football game, when a football game, any even 4 or 5-year-old can sit on the bench and look at the scoreboard and know exactly whether his or her team is winning or losing. And that is how simple a scoreboard is put together. So the question is, how are you creating that sort of visibility, that sort of clarity and simplicity in a scoreboard that all staff can see at any point in time? The next one then is benchmarks. Benchmarks help staff know what good looks like, and what great looks like, and what excellent looks like, and what underperformance looks like. They want to see, how have other people performed in the same role as I? How do I know that what I'm doing is on par, is average, or is actually starting to lift the game and start becoming excellent? Typically, people are driven at work, not just by pay. Pay is typically the 6th or even 7th motivator. The largest motivators are a sense of belonging. It's about having interesting work, seeing where they're going with things, seeing that they're actually growing and advancing, the fact that they're working with people and they're always learning. These are some of the most important motivators. And so when looking at benchmarks, it provides people guidance and helps them to kind of self-correct. If you're sitting in a plane and you're using the autopilot, right? It's the same idea. The autopilot method is there to always course correct. Well, guess what? Having benchmarks, it's almost like the autopilot helping to course correct. People are self-motivated typically, especially if they know what to do and how to do it, and they're getting the resources and the support for it. Next one is weekly huddles. A lot of organizations that I talk to, they have such a thing. Some call it toolbox meetings, some call it stand-up meetings, some call it weekly huddles, or I even know a business that calls it kisses and cuddles, right? So there's lots of ways that you can call it, but the idea is that it's a simple 20-minute sort of meeting that is done religiously at the same time, same day, and it basically is there to inspire. But here's again the challenge. I would say that a lot of businesses are guilty at charge for creating a little bit of fear during those meetings, because they're talking a lot about what went wrong, what should be done better, what should be done different. And so it's actually not really uplifting. It's not very inspiring when weekly huddles are done that way. They're meant to really set the tone. They're meant to create excitement. They're meant to pick people up and to show them a different way, to reach for the stars. That's where the magic comes in. I remember even an organization having created a whole song that people would sing on a Monday morning straight after coming back from their weekend. And they would sing it, and it was just a very uplifting song. And it was all about victory and winning and, making progress together and, celebrating as a team. And guess what? It really got people pumped up. And that's what you want to do. Now, I understand that for some certain type of people and profiles of people, these sorts of songs wouldn't really quite gel, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be that way, but it really works well with salespeople, for example. It's all about finding what works for people, but you need to get the intention and the way that the weekly huddles are delivered right from the get-go, which is it's positive, it's uplifting, it's inspiring, and it's exciting. It drives positive performance. Next is week sessions, and it stands for the wildly important goals sessions. Now those are also weekly huddles, but they're very different. They're very focused on holding people accountable in a 20-minute stand-up meeting where everybody presents back on the key metrics that they had to deliver and how those metrics in terms of daily activities are driving the results on the scoreboard. I've facilitated a lot of sessions with teams on getting the clarity and the granularity of what is important and what isn't, and then create it into dashboards and scoreboards. That is a sort of support systems that you require in order to run week sessions in a very positive and constructive way. The next one is 90-day plans. Many decades ago, especially in large corporations, there was big strategic planning sessions done with planning done for sometimes 5 to even 10 years in advance. Now nowadays, we all know that the environment is too quickly fluctuating and growing, and technology is coming in and out, that you cannot really see that far in advance without having to seriously adjust your course because of new technologies, new interruptions, new innovations, new market trends. There's so many changes happening that we cannot foresee all of it happening so much down the track, which is why more organizations these days are helping to work together with the teams on what they call either horizon plans or 90-day plans, where everybody has a shorter focus on 90 days being 3 months or a quarter. And it allows them to always, let's say, focus on the most important things during that time frame. So if there is a certain key initiative or a project that is being rolled out, they got 90 days to go about the implementation of it, for example. All right, so 90-day plans really shortens the attention span down on a shorter period of time. Therefore, a lot of effort, time, and love can be injected in those very projects. Next one is quarterly meetings. Quarterly meetings are really important as a team to schedule in well in advance. You have them because you want to sometimes take time out of the office, out of the normal work environment, to really not be in the woods, but really hover above the woods and look down again. And always keep clear in terms of where are we headed? Why are we doing what we're doing? What is working, what is not working, and how can we course adjust? These quarterly meetings are really important, and you want to at least allocate 1 day, if not 2, to them. Therefore, everybody is always in the know, everybody is always contributing to and supporting the cause that we're all meant to work towards. The next one is annual reviews. Most organizations, even in small and medium businesses, they would typically have annual reviews. Once again, there's 2 ways where we can lead them. We can use them as an opportunity to finally say all the things that didn't go, which we also could have said with just regular feedback, or we can see them as an opportunity to just basically reiterate and hash in on the same points that we already said all along the way, because constant feedback provided constant course correction, constant potential encouragement and guidance and support. So therefore, people really felt that they were, that they were not doing it alone. And that is really where your annual reviews should just basically be the next step. It's just one extra layer where you're sitting down and you're formalizing a few things and you're scoring everything, again with the idea to fuel people, and here and there just add 1 or 2 things that you would like them to work on next, because we're all wanting to get better at things. The next one is room for growth. Room for growth means that all of us, we love to learn. Employees, typically really good ones, they are eager to learn and grow and thrive. And therefore, the question is, what sort of learning opportunities do you provide them, especially as it relates to those very things that your employees are very driven by and motivated by? Because here's the thing, every single person has personal values that they live by. And so they've got certain passions and hobbies. And there's certain things at work that they really would love to learn and do more of because it lines up with their values. So therefore, if you give them an opportunity to pursue that more and support them more and give them courses and coaching opportunities in direction of or in line with those values and passions, well, obviously, these people are going to feel very supported, and they're going to enjoy coming to work, and they're going to be learning the things that they actually care about, rather than going through all the training that is mandatory for compliance reasons, for example, that might be really boring, doing things that they're not taking an interest in, but it kind of has to tick the boxes and so on. That is not room for growth. Room for growth is really looking back at the individual, looking at what really makes their heart sing and giving them courses and coaching in line with that. Next one, number 15, we're almost there, is room to make mistakes. The greatest businesses, they understand that learning is just a mere step on the way to victory. And so if we look at it from that angle, when people drop the ball, so to speak, it's just an opportunity to get better next. And it's just a necessary evil on the way to prosperity, on the way to winning, on the way to succeeding. And so we shouldn't really see failure as almost like the thing in itself to talk about. We should more see failure as an opportunity to invite an employee to come forward and say, hey, what did you learn from that? Tell me, how did this event shape your thinking? Based on this, what you just experienced, how are you going to do things differently next time? You invited to share their thinking with you, to share their learning lessons and how that's going to impact their behaviors next time. And that is a very constructive conversation to embark in. Last but not least is performance reviews. And I really intentionally put this at the far back at point number 16, because performance reviews is really only the last resort. It means if you have helped and supported your people and inspired them and guided them all along the way, especially with things like casual feedback, clarity of goals, personal plans, and then of course making sure that the environment is one where people really thrive because you're lifting people up rather than pushing them down. If you created that, there's already magic in the workplace. And so performance reviews, in most cases, you won't even need them because it's the last resort. It's really when it doesn't work out at all, that's when you would go to performance management reviews. Now that is basically the 16 points that we've spoken about. Share your thoughts below this video here with me. Look forward to also seeing you again next time. Appreciate you tuning in. My name is Bram.